Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now.
Let's jump right into it, man. Coming up March
Awesome.
23rd, Payton Talbott back at bantamweight. Back at bantamweight, that's important. This is a bantamweight fight. How do you look at Payton and his fighting style?
Yeah, with Payton, with every new opponent, it brings new challenges, And Payton is a very good striker. He looks like he punched he has like power in his hands, and But we fought guys like that before. We've fought strong men here in South Africa and overseas. We've faced a lot of good strikers, and Payton is one of them. So it's definitely going into this camp, I was super excited because he also came off the Contender Series. He also has a big hype, and I think the general public is very excited for this fight, for what we can bring to the cage. And we are two rising prospects in the bantamweight division, not a 140-pound division. So I'm very excited to get back into the cage as an undefeated bantamweight, and keep that score going.
Yeah, that little asterisk, I guess you could say, on that. That can uh help with your mental, state heading into the next fight. Can it?
Yeah.
Thinking that
Yeah,
this is at bantamweight.
yeah, that's a great question, because how do you mentally approach a scenario like that? And at the end of the day, good or bad, if I won that fight, it would have been part of the story, part of the bigger story, part of the book one day. And if I lost, exactly the same thing. These are the small hurdles as a professional athlete and as a fighter, especially, that you have to go through. You need to go through adversity like that. I am not scared to go through adversity like that, and I'll prove in my next performance that stuff like that will not bother me going forward. 23 years old, I'm planning on fighting in the UFC for a very long time, and I'm going to show not only the fans, but I'm going to prove to myself and to my team and to the people that love and support me that we deserve to be there.
Definitely. And Talbot's promotional debut against Nick Aguirre. What do you think of that fight?
It was a very interesting fight, to be honest. I think going into the first round, got taken down very quickly, and I was actually quite surprised, to be honest. I actually watched that fight live, and I was very surprised to how easily he got taken down, and but again, he just showed a very key point of maturity in that fight, just staying super patient, not getting overwhelmed, being level headed, and I expect that same mentality coming into this fight. I expect a strong, mature Payton Talbot, a level headed guy, and we will come with our best foot forward. We will apply pressure, and we will make sure that he breaks under that pressure for sure.
Yeah, Talbot, watching tape on him, because I've been watching couple of his fights as well. He's a risk taker, and
Yep.
some of his, methods are unorthodox. Does that affect your approach against him?
Not at all. To be honest, I think a guy like that, he is super creative with some of his stuff that he throws. I think he is one of those guys that are are willing to try something new in the cage. And I think that's what makes that fight so exciting as well. I think going into this fight, we are seeing a new era of MMA. You don't see guys falling back into their old-fashioned ways of doing something. If he's a boxer, he got rocked, he's gonna fall back to his boxing. I think you are gonna see two very creative guys that want to stay striking. I think that's where we both have something in common. We want to stay on the feet, and if we can do that, that would be great. So going into this fight, we will be ready for everything that he has. Everything that he's willing to throw at us, we will have an answer for, and you'll get to see that come fight night.
Is it one of those scenarios of who shoots first for the takedown? Is that what it is?
That's going to be a very interesting thing, but I think he's going to shoot first, to be honest.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Your last fight, against Christian Rodriguez. I saw the video of the Q&A that you did after that fight, and you were talking about that you didn't rewatch it. You just remember what you remember. Have you rewatched it? And when you dissect your own performance, what did you see?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a very hard thing because I honestly watching that fight back, I firstly the decision, it was very hard going into that fight. After the fight, was quite weird because I went to my coaches. They thought I had round 1 and 3, and I went to, and then Michael Bisping came to me, and he like congratulated me on the fight. And I asked him like, "Sir, we had 1 and 3, right?" Because that's what I was thinking. So I was like, "Is my mentality up? Did what I feel, did that correlate with what my coaches saw?" And then they said yes. So I felt quite good. And then when Michael Bisping, he has no, he's just an outsider. He was like, yeah, 1 and 3. And then it went the other way. So it was heartbreaking having that decision and watching the fight back. There is a lot of technical stuff that we had to address immediately, like stuff that we did that's where we screwed up, and that's on me 100%. We trained as good as we could for Christian Rodriguez. We had the perfect game plan going into that fight. We implemented it quite well. The all-round execution wasn't there, and that's my responsibility, so watching the fight back, I'm very proud of the effort we put into that fight. I'm very proud of key factors in that fight. But this camp was once again, we had now 10 almost 12 weeks to right those wrongs, and we'll be able to right those wrongs in the next fight as well.
That short period of time you're talking about earlier, about when you went to your corners after the fight was over and they told you this and Michael Bisping told you that, that must have been such a roller coaster of emotions, right? Because once the fight is done, you sometimes you don't think, you don't know, because the fight just probably went past like it was 15 seconds, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's weird because especially that fight, I think it was super dynamic, super high pace. It was all over the show, so it felt like it went by as like it was at the speed of light. And then the moments, and I'm going to be honest as well. I got rocked in that second round, and so I was also not mentally where I had to be. So after the fight, there was quite a relief of, okay, the fight's done. I really put everything in there, my heart and my soul. I left inside that cage, and then quickly chatting to coaches and to Michael Bisping, and there was a type of uncertainty going into that decision. And you know what? It's one of those cases where that's kind of you don't see a trend, but you do see that if you want to ensure a fight going your way, you need to get a finish. And we've always trained like that. We've always, I finished all my fights up until my EFC world title. I finished all my fights coming into the UFC. I finished 2 out of the 3 wins. So it's one of those things that we need to ensure we get a finish if we want to ensure we get the win.
Since your UFC debut, in an 11-month span, you fought 4 times, and most of those fights were on pay-per-view cards, man. That's an incredible pace to start your career. How was that whole?
It did. That's also a big keynote from how we're gonna start managing not only my career but the guys at Team CIT. We are super active, and after after fights, you get a small break, but coach expects you to be back in the gym to try and help the other guys as well. So we have a very competition heavy culture. You stay there to either help someone or you are preparing for a camp. So I think with that, we have a great team dynamic where in a healthy way that is almost promoted and pushed, and almost you put your best foot forward going into every single camp because you're already in shape. And that first 11 months was a big roller coaster because it's a massive step up in competition, a massive step up in obligations around fighting. Our friends and fans and everyone watching the UFC, you get to see the 15 or 25 minutes inside the cage, and there's so much that goes around that as well. And I was just super proud to be able to maintain that consistency, but also at the flip side of that, we had to learn quickly how to firstly listen to our bodies. I don't think we did that very well. You know, that's the proud Afrikaans, Boer, South African way of, you know, rub some dirt on it. If you you know, if you have an injury on both sides, it's fine. It evens out. It was that type of mentality. So going into this fight, we had to make sure. I had a massive surgery as well. I had a full ear reconstruction and facial nose reconstruction, so I can actually breathe through my nose now as well, which helps a lot. And we focused on our recovery. We focused on getting fully healed before going into a camp. And luckily, I got to do that over the December months when Dricus was training for his camp. And I got to start off the year with a bang in January, almost the last week in December, first week in January, started my camp.
Wow, man, you've been through a lot. It's, you know, even just the last year, and then you mentioned the surgery, like the ear. That's an interesting
Yeah.
one. Why the
Yeah.
ear?
I don't know if you can see that on camera. There's a quite. I'll send you a photo of it
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so actually I burst my eardrum about four weeks before the Terrence Mitchell fight. So unknowingly, I actually thought firstly I had like tooth problems because I've struggled with that in the past as well. Because I had like this pain in my jaw. Then I thought I took a big shot on the jaw. And turns out after the Christian Rodriguez fight, when we went back, we went to a specialist, and he said all that derived from an eardrum that burst a while back and didn't fully heal. So I was training with a full with a burst eardrum for a very long time. Going after the after the Terrence Mitchell fight, going into that camp, you know, I had a lot of problems with my hearing, and I started going deaf in the one ear as well. And it was one of those things like I didn't want to tell anyone because I don't know exactly what's happening, but let's just keep it quiet, focus on the job at hand. And then after the Rodriguez fight, after the loss as well, it was one of those. The loss was good in many ways, where I was like, listen, you need to start looking after yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to do this until you are 34, 35, you know. So then we went again. I have an amazing medical team. Went to the medical team, did full checkups, and then that's where they found burst eardrum, broken orbital, broken nose, and we just had it heal by itself. It didn't heal properly, and that's where we had to, you know, make the choice: do we do the surgery now in the time we have off, and have it better for the 2024 year? And that was almost a given. That was a very easy decision. Just jump in, do it, commit to it, and then focus on recovery. So we did that
Did you get a lot of ear infections as well?
a lot. So actually,
Oh
before
God.
that, you can. So I'm giving away so many things, but hopefully you can use this. But in the Terrence Mitchell fight and in the Christian Rodriguez fight. So in the Terrence Mitchell fight, you'll see our coach like does activation for us. It's just like for proprioception. So he'll slap you, stuff like that. You'll see in the Terrence Mitchell fight, he slaps me quite hard on my burst eardrum. And you can see me almost flinch because that eardrum is burst. So I already had an infection for a few weeks, and then you take a shot on that ear, it sucks. So then before the Christian Rodriguez fight, I kindly asked him to just, if you slap me, like try and slap me on the cheek or the jaw. Just don't slap me on the ear, and just do it much softer. And you can literally see in the walkouts, in the preps, how different those two moments are. So I was struggling with ear infections a lot, but luckily that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, I know a fighter right now. He's had 4 or 5 ear infections this year already, and he's just like
Yeah,
he's really over it. I can only, you know, imagine like what you went through for 2 fights, but you're
yeah,
back and healthy. You look great.
I
You
can
know,
help.
how do you see yourself, man, getting this win against your next opponent?
That's a great question. You know, going into this fight, there's a type of, I think both of us want the same thing. We wanted to stay on the feet, and we want to score a highlight reel finish. And you know, that's always great to prepare for. And it's it's always one of those things that if it happens, that's great. I'm seeing myself winning this fight, going forward, applying a lot of pressure. I think that I can outwork him. I think I can outpace him as well. And I do think I can outstrike him. So it's going to come down to who wants it more. He's a brilliant striker. He is a power puncher. He hits very hard. You can see that in the way he fights. But I do think that coming from the camp where I do, coming from the gym that I do think that we will implement the perfect game plan to neutralize most of his threats, to push the pace where we need to, and we will catch him. And whether that's first, second, or third, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be focusing on leaving it out of the hands of the judges, because apparently we don't see eye to eye about a lot of decisions in the UFC. So we're going to leave it out of the hands of the judges. If it goes to the ground, we'll be prepared for that as well. And but yeah, I've I think if someone's going to shoot, it's going to be him. And he has a great ground game. So
Yeah.
I would too if I had that ground game. But I would love for it to stay on the feet.
Yeah, it's a barn burner. That's the word. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
barn burner, man. You don't know when it's gonna be over with. You know what I mean? Two more things before I let you go. Adesanya and your teammate Du Plessis. Does that fight? Do you think that fight really needs to happen, or could we do without that fight?
That fight needs to happen. That fight really needs to happen. Yeah, no, that's one of those fights that it will definitely go down in history as not only a very heated rivalry, because that is, let's call a spade a spade. That is what it's going to be in the build up of that fight. There's already been some talk, obviously, the way that Izzy disrespected Dricus after a very impressive win inside the cage. After that win, that needs to be addressed. And I know Dricus. The only way he knows how to address stuff like that is by sorting it out in the cage. So I do think that will happen. And if I have to gun against the head, if I have to place a bet on that happening, I do think it will happen this year. I'm not sure. I have no evidence, no news to really. It's a guess. It's really a guess, but I do think it happens this year. And the cherry on top would be if it happens in South Africa. And there's been some whispers, there's been some talks, and after this fight, I would like to fight once more, maybe June, July, and then my schedule is open because I really want that Africa card. I want to represent my country in my own country. So we'll keep that schedule open until we know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. I can't wait for that to happen. And
Yeah.
the last question, 299. You got the bantamweight title on the line. Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera. Chito has a win over him, finished him. His only loss, O'Malley's only loss, but O'Malley's the champion. Who has the mental edge on in your eyes?
100% O'Malley. I do think that even though Chito Vera has that win over him, again, there's a little asterisk next to that win, because I do think just the amount of momentum O'Malley has. I do think going into this fight, I do think he finishes Vera, and I do think after that he finishes Marab as well. I do think just the way O'Malley is approaching every single fight is very smart. I think people underestimate him for his gimmick, for how he is perceived on social media and in the public eye. But I do think he's a grinder, and I think he works super hard. And I think him and his team is much more technical than they get credit for. And I do think you'll get to see that in this fight as well. The adjustments that there's a bunch of adjustments they would have to make going into this fight, and I do think they'll get that quite easily. And I think he'll drop him somewhere in the third, if I have to guess, third or fourth, get a TKO finish. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Great insight, man. March 23rd, you're back in action. I can't wait. Las Vegas. Cameron, thank you so much, man, for the time, and all the
Thank
best in
you.
the fight, and all the best in getting that South Africa card in the book
Yeah.
somehow.
Definitely. We're going to keep on nagging Uncle Sean and Uncle Dana. We're going to keep on calling for it. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your fan base, for supporting myself, for supporting the crazy South Africans, for supporting Team CIT. I really appreciate it. Thanks.